We had a lot of news from central banks today. Both the Federal Reserve and the Bank of Canada told us what they think of the global economy and where they see interest rates going. Interesting to look at the two different viewpoints. Now, the Federal Reserve, we heard from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, spoke to Congress first of 2 days worth of testimony. And all the markets heard was, I'm going to cut rates. And that's probably correct. It looks like the Federal Reserve will cut their benchmark rate later this month in July, possibly cut or probably cut again later this year. Now, it's perhaps a little bit surprising that they're so clear on this, in that we've had some economic numbers lately that haven't been terrible. In fact, if you look at the June jobs report, it has been quite good. However, the Fed does see this broader global picture, and it's not looking as bright as it could look. They are also citing trade tensions in the US. Of course, the US has some issues with China, with other countries. That is not great. But I think what the markets missed is that Mr. Powell talked about inflation, and he sees inflation at a dangerously low level, below what the Fed's looking for, and sees that perhaps persisting for a longer period of time. And when you have inflation that low, it sounds good. You're not paying more for things at the store, but it also is a sign of a weak economy, and it can go from bad to worse. We've seen this in Japan, we've seen this in other countries. So the Fed is looking at inflation and saying, look, we don't like this, and perhaps we need to cut rates to get this economy going, given that this trade issue is not going away. Now, Bank of Canada, kind of bigger news in the sense they actually made a decision on rates today, and they said they are not changing rates. Now, some might find that surprising because Canada and the US, obviously very close trading partners. The US is expected to cut rates. Why is the Bank of Canada not doing that? They don't see an immediate need for it. The economic numbers have been actually somewhat better in recent months. We actually have interest rates in Canada that are very low by anyone's standards. They don't want to trigger activity that's beyond what's sustainable, particularly in housing, but also consumer markets and anything else. And at the moment, they do not see a need to cut rates. Not that they will not cut in future. It's always a possibility that's on the table. But for now, they're kind of going it alone. So Bank of Canada, a bit of an outlier right now. Federal Reserve probably cutting rates later this month. The big question here is not who's cutting or who's not cutting. It's, is anyone cutting? And if they are cutting, is it because we have a global recession? And if they're not cutting, is it too late? I would say it's not too late, and we do have relatively stable economies in the US and Canada. Now, that is a wildly controversial view right now. Some think we are already in a recession. I don't know. I don't know that it matters if we're technically in a recession or not. I think at the moment, interest rates are not at an inappropriate level, and I'm not uncomfortable with the outlook right now. So again, the Federal Reserve says it will cut to stimulate. The Bank of Canada leaving things on hold. We'll see how this year and this economy unfolds.